Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Let me ask you a question. Is a little bit of consistency too much to ask for these days? I mean, for Pete's sakes, it's peak election season. You would think the Democrats would have it all figured out. They'd have their image, they'd have their messaging platform ready to go, packaged, sent and delivered. But all I'm seeing is constant contradictions and hypocrisy. Of course, we know the Democrat track record on the issue of the southern border. Democrats have essentially opened the border, plunging the country into total crisis and chaos. Oh, nothing to see here, folks. Just violent Venezuelan gangs taking over entire buildings and neighborhoods. That's obviously been their track record. No human is illegal, as Kamala has said a million times. Illegal migrants are not criminals. Of course, they went from that to now attempting to be border hawks. Kamala Harris changing her tune.
My value around what we need to do to secure our border. That value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California, prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border.
Kamala's even talking about building Trump's border wall, or at least continuing to build Trump's border wall. So they were open border, now they're border hawks. It's all so confusing, and now it gets even more confusing as Nancy Pelosi decides to chime in on Bill Maher's show, where she essentially says the quiet part out loud. Amnesty for all illegal migrants. Holy frickin' moly, you could not create more dishonest people, even if given access to a heavenly lab that creates human beings from scratch. It's freaking unbelievable. The Democrats are lying to you, and their actual plans, well, it's pretty obvious what they actually intend. Let's have a conversation about that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so obviously I was suggesting that there's confusion, although there really isn't. There's certainly inconsistency in the messaging, but nobody's confused. We know exactly what the Democrats are up to and what they're trying to do, and like I always say, don't take my word for it. Just listen to the words coming out of their own mouths. Here's Nancy Pelosi finally admitting the truth.
The California lawmakers just passed a law, it hasn't been signed by Governor Newsom, but giving government assistance to undocumented immigrants to buy houses. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a different place than the Democratic Party used to be on immigration, is it not? I'm not going to say that's what the country's going to do, but that's certainly where California is.
Well, let me just say, immigration had always been a bipartisan issue. I refer you to
But not free houses.
Well, that's not free housing. It's the American dream being available to more people. But understand this about immigration. The best speech on immigration was by President Ronald Reagan. This is the last speech I will make as President of the United States. I want to communicate a message to the country I love. And he talked about the Statue of Liberty and the beacon of hope it is to the world, and what America was preeminent in the world because our door was always open, and we will cease to be preeminent when we shut the door. Now, I don't do justice to the great communicator. Google it. It's a fabulous speech. And George Herbert Walker Bush continued in that respect for the diversity of America and the rest. California's always in the lead. Maybe others will follow that lead, but that's up to those states. But we're very blessed here with beautiful diversity.
So you'd vote for this law?
Excuse me?
So you'd vote for this law?
Well, I'm not familiar with exactly what that is, but making the American dream of home ownership available to all people is something we have to do for people who are here now.
This is before you were a citizen. This is undocumented. This is for the undocumented.
Well, what I would like to do is move them to documented. The fact that we can move them to documented. One of the best things that we can do for our economy is to pass comprehensive immigration reform.
Now, we've been talking about this for a long time, that this is exactly what the Democrats are up to. And for years and years and years, they've called us kooky, deranged conspiracy theorists. They've called us liars. We're lying. No Democrat has ever suggested that. We don't want to import millions of new loyal voters. We just want to grant amnesty to all illegal migrants. Give me a frickin' break. It's the exact same thing. It's clear that the Democrats are pursuing an aggressive and deliberate agenda to fundamentally change the American electoral landscape. And of course, they want to do that through their immigration policies. They aren't just championing compassionate policies for the sake of humanitarianism. That's just the marketing shtick. They're playing a long con to reshape the American electorate by importing a new loyal voter base. I mean, we spoke about this not too long ago. I think Joe Rogan was going on about this.
But look at New York City. When Cuomo was explaining how New York City literally has a mandate to house its homeless.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to be the people that lived there that were down on their luck. And now it's people that have come in from other cities or other countries rather, illegally. And they're trying to make it so that those people can vote. And you see what they're doing with people from Venezuela?
Crazy.
They're sending people back from Venezuela.
Only from Venezuela.
Yeah, because Venezuela opposes socialism. So they're not going to vote Democratic.
Yeah.
They don't want those people.
That's crazy.
It's wild.
It's crazy how it's so odd. Like when you start thinking about it like that, that sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it's like totally political, all these moves.
100%.
Yeah.
They're literally importing Democratic voters.
Yeah.
They think by allowing the borders to be porous and by giving people aid and giving people housing that you're essentially guaranteeing that if you can rig it so that those people are allowed to vote, those people are going to vote Democratic.
And again, the left said he's crazy, he's a conspiracy theorist, he's an alt-right extremist. But then Nancy Pelosi comes on air and essentially confirms the whole thing. I mean, for decades, Democrats have been doing this. They've been pushing policies that effectively open the southern border, decriminalize illegal migration. They treat every single migrant as an asylum seeker. It's totally absurd. They incentivize migrants to cross into the United States without following the legal process. And all the while, they blame Donald Trump and climate change for the southern border. No. You know what's to blame for the crisis at the southern border? Literally what Nancy Pelosi just said. You don't need a border security bill that spends billions of dollars hiring new judges and expanding the asylum process so more people can attempt to fraud the system. All you need to do is stop promising free crap. It's one thing to promise free healthcare for migrants.
So you support giving universal health care, Medicare for all, to people who are in this country illegally?
Let me just be very clear about this. I am opposed to any policy that would deny in our country any human being from access to public safety, public education, or public health, period.
It's another thing to accept people in your sanctuary cities or to give illegal migrants driver's licenses, the ability to work, the ability to rent and purchase homes. I mean, for Pete's sakes, California is now considering $150,000 government subsidized home purchasing loans for illegal migrants. I mean, as if all of that wasn't enough. No, Nancy Pelosi is now promising people citizenship.
This is before you're a citizen. This is undocumented. This is for the undocumented.
Well, what I would like to do is move them to documented.
That's the biggest prize of all. That's what everyone's looking for. And here we got the Democrat Party offering the biggest freebie of all. What do you think's gonna follow? A frickin' migrant caravan, because this is what the cartels do. They'll take this clip from Nancy Pelosi and they'll send it far and wide as a marketing shtick on Instagram and Facebook and other places, and they'll advertise their services $10,000, $20,000, sometimes $30,000, depending on where you come from. I heard that was the going rate for Chinese migrants being smuggled through the southern border port of entry. You got these cartels selling their services for tens of thousands of dollars, in many cases to unsuspecting victims, using this clip of Nancy Pelosi as the basis for it all. They're causing this crisis, and it's all done by design because they want to bring in more tens of millions of illegal migrants working in the shadows across the nation with the hopes that one day, through the signing of a paper, they're going to grant all of these people amnesty and put them on a path towards citizenship. Well, what do you think that's going to do? All of a sudden, you have 30 million people who are undocumented magically getting granted visas and green cards, possibly even passports, I'd assume, for the DACA recipients. 30 million people who now owe their citizenship to the Democrat Party. What do you think that's going to do? That creates a loyal voter base. All of a sudden, Republicans will never be able to win an election ever again. But anyways, look, one thing is clear here, and really I think it's the only relevant takeaway. These Democrats are obviously liars, and they're obviously hell-bent on power. And think about those two concepts in conjunction. You know, power-hungry liar isn't exactly the first thing that comes to mind when I think of leadership qualities. These Democrats are only consistent in one thing and one thing alone, and that's saying and doing whatever they gotta do or say to get elected to positions of power. Nancy Pelosi finally reveals the truth that we've been called deranged, kooky conspiracy theorists for clearly pointing out. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.